All right, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Graham Rosser. He was hired by the Mississippi State University's College of Veterinary Medicine in their Department of Comparative Biomedical Sciences in 2017, where he currently works as an assistant research professor focused on aquatic parasitology. So Graham, looking forward to hearing about your lab.
Awesome. Well, hopefully I won't get disconnected. I'm currently sitting in the Atlanta airport waiting to go to Uganda. So if I do get it disconnected, just keep going without me. It's probably for the best anyway. Um, so uh, yeah, I didn't know really what to put together for this to kind of just illustrate what all we do. But in short, I like to call it our little world and everybody else is just kind of living in it. So it really, to me, highlights the biodiversity of parasites that we work with in aquatic animal systems and just how much work remains to be done in terms of understanding the biodiversity of parasites there, what their effects are on the host and their life cycles, which brings in management opportunities to control them and that sort of thing. So that's really where my interest is in terms of aquatic animal health and parasitology. But to be honest, I'm really just collecting bugs. Um, the kind of how did I get to where I am? Well, I can thank quite a lot of people, but one that was instrumental was the late Dr. Linda Pote, who took me into her lab as an undergrad and just kind of instilled in the passion for the field and just her profound interest in parasites. And it really helps when you have someone that is just so in love with the field to just inspire future people to go on and do it. And she absolutely did that for me. And so why parasites? Everybody asks me this all the time. People that don't know what parasitology is, my answer is serendipity always. I happen to be in the right place at the right time. And it's been good to me. And what I tell every student is, don't settle for less, just find a job where you think every day, it's crazy that they pay me to do this. And when are they going to find out that I'm getting paid to do it? And when are they going to fire me? So I don't know. That's my measure of success. But one of the things that keeps the lights on is the support from studying the parasites that affect catfish aquaculture here in the US. And so, of course, you probably are all very familiar with catfish aquaculture in that it is the largest US aquaculture industry in the United States, concentrated in the southeastern part of the US and valued anywhere from a couple $1 million, about 430 usually in total sales. And threats to the industry are a myriad of things: foreign imports, infectious diseases, and bird depredation. But along with those, the producers get kind of hit with multiple things from these fish-eating birds, as well as the parasites that they introduce. And so we kind of deal with a lot of different hosts in these systems. So they're very large and unruly. But my PhD work here in the lab and kind of what I started out with was work with myxozoans and their biodiversity in catfish aquaculture, working with Matt Griffin and Linda Pote and David Wise. And, they kind of just let me go crazy and do whatever I want with a little bit of a leash. And so it was very fun to just kind of see the different biodiversity of these myxozoans out there in their oligocete host, as well as the fish, and characterizing them molecularly and figuring out some of their life cycles. So that was kind of where it all started. But the real important aspect of our work, my work as a grad student, was the sort of figuring out that there was a difference between PGD, proliferative gill disease, in channels, hybrid catfish, and blue catfish, in terms of which ones actually are patent host in a life cycle. So they actually do contribute to new infections by producing myxospores. And so what we found in these controlled studies that we did using infectious pond water from catfish ponds experiencing a PGD outbreak was that the channel catfish, are kind of the ones that are susceptible the most and the ones that die acutely from disease, hybrids being intermediate, and then of course blues were the most resistant. But what we found in the hybrid catfish is that there was basically arrested sort of development of these parasites to the point where it may be an option for limiting the presence of this parasite in these systems. And so kind of following from there, I got to work with a lot of great people from various parts of the US, characterizing mixos from a variety of fish from different both aquaculture and natural systems. And there's just too many mixozoans to deal with these days. So they also let me kind of branch out into trematode work as well, because that's another important parasite that we deal with in aquaculture, and a more interesting group to me just because of how complex they are. So these days, that's kind of where our lab focus is figuring out life cycles as well as looking at for control through treatment with low dose copper sulfate to eliminate either the eggs of the trematode themselves from hatching in the pond water or killing the miracidium stage that would emerge from them. But all the time, looking at these various trematodes in the bird hosts that are present in their systems and seeing which ones are there and which ones are actually important to causing disease in the aquaculture catfish. And so we've described quite a few new species from those. And so then, with Dr. Stephen Reichley and all that he does, gets me involved in marine mammals and sea turtle parasites and tells me, Graham, you got to do this. So I'm more than happy to do that, of course, anything for Stephen. And then I realized that I might have bit off more than I could handle. But there is quite a lot of work that we're doing there, characterizing these parasites as well, getting into some new next-gen sequencing in confirming kind of their whole mitochondrial genomes and using that instead of old conventional Sanger sequencing and PCR to generate these data sets more efficiently and economically and getting just a lot of data from that. And so, in short, I don't want to take up too much time, and because I didn't prepare for this as thoroughly as I should have. But why does all this matter? Well, from a standpoint of taxonomy, you can infer relatedness from closely related species and kind of get an idea of how they work, and also using morphology as well. So where do they develop in the host? Are their life cycles similar? Do they have the same number of hosts, same kind of host? And understanding the limits of their geographic ranges and that sort of thing. And then also pathogenesis through our experimental infections in catfish. But I do always come back to this quote from an entomology text: is the proper aim of taxonomy is not necessarily to name a species, but to know them. And with that comes the caveat of being able to inform producers, these are the things you need to focus on in terms of snail intermediate host or excluding certain bird species that are introducing these various trematodes that are pathogenic to fish. And so in addition to the marine mammal and sea turtle and catfish stuff that we do a lot of wildlife parasitology as part of just club activities at the College of Vet Med where I'm at. And a student in the lab, Ethan Woodyard, as an undergrad, kind of started this project with alligators, and it's since grown to include multiple students working on parasites from them and kind of understanding just the biodiversity there. So you'll hear from Parker today, and then Jonah is going to talk about some new stuff that we're doing with some nematodes in apple snails and the importance of monitoring for those in the southeastern US. So acknowledgements, there's too many people to list on here. All of my students, of course, all of the students that have helped with necropsies over the years. And then, of course, these various funding sources, USDA NIFA for a lot of the trematode work from a aquaculture grant from there, funding from the crocodile specialist group and the Mississippi State University College of Vet Med. And yeah, that's pretty much all I got. Very quick run through. I was kind of scared I wasn't going to have a stable internet connection, so I didn't want to keep it too complex, but yeah.
Well, that was great. That was perfect. Really interesting program you have down there, and no end to the number of parasites, I suppose you could describe.
Job security. I don't say that to producers, though.
Yeah, right. Folks, if you have a quick question, feel free to drop it into the chat or unmute yourself. All right. Well, thanks again, Graham.
Yep.